Going by the law of averages, it was only a matter of time before I was exposed to COVID long enough to have tested positive on the RT-PCR test, which I did the day before New Year's Eve, 21. The only reason I even tested was to be responsible before going to a house party on New Year's Eve. I'm glad I tested though, because I live with family and it would have really sucked if I passed it on to anyone else at home. Having said that, I was mostly asymptomatic. I felt a slight heavy head the day of the PCR test, which lasted under a day and then went away. Other than that, nothing. No aches, no pains, no fatigue, and no fever. I'd like to attribute this perhaps more to my diet and lifestyle rather than solely credit the vaccine. I say this because anecdotally, I've personally known tens of people who've tested positive and many boosted, only to have had a rough 3 to 4 days where they were completely out of it with fatigue, body pain, headaches, and fever. In this video, I want to talk about my daily routine, food and supplement game to ensure that I stayed as close to normal during this mandatory 10-day isolation period. Hi, I'm Rishi and thanks for stopping by my channel. I'm a practicing nutritionist with a background in human physiology and nutritional sciences. I take a holistic, scientific approach to health and wellness, using food and lifestyle changes to optimize one's nutrition, promoting longevity and healthy aging. So if you want to hack your health span and be the best version of yourself, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything. For the record, I'm double vaccinated with Pfizer, but not boosted. I have no underlying conditions that I know of. The second shot was back in early May 21, so I'm not even sure of its efficacy in Jan 22, since apparently antibodies are down to about 20% efficacy after 6 months, and this is 8 months in. Even though I wasn't really symptomatic in the broader sense, I felt the need to clear my throat every few hours. That's when I decided to throw everything I had at the virus, and those symptoms swiftly disappeared without manifesting into anything more. I want to first address all the food choices I made and why I made them, to help you better fend off this virus. Here's what my daily regime looked like. First was superfood greens, which I had twice a day on an empty stomach. This gives your body the biggest bang for its buck by way of food. This is extremely nutrient dense and gives you a much needed spark in energy too. Personally, what I use is superfood greens by Amazing Grass. I'll put a link in the video notes in case you're interested. Next was black garlic coffee. Now I know this doesn't sound too appetizing, but trust me, it works. Garlic is one of the most potent natural antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal foods out there. And COVID affects the upper respiratory passages the most, including your throat. So drinking this through the day is a really beneficial way in sanitizing this pathway. To make the taste even worse, add some fresh ginger root as well. Ginger has very similar medicinal properties to garlic. Now, if you're not a coffee drinker, then have the garlic and ginger in spiced black tea instead. Add spices like cardamom, cloves, and cinnamon to make the tea way more enjoyable. The next thing I'd recommend is chia seeds in lemon water. Ideally, leave the chia soaking in the water overnight before having it. Chia seeds provide a full spectrum of amino acids and essential fatty acids, and soaking them overnight helps keep the body hydrated. And lemon helps detox the body, flush out wastes, and helps in alkalizing your system. Moving on to actual foods now. Protein. A high protein diet is always advisable, but even more so when one is sick, as it helps keep you satiated longer. This way, you don't have the urge to snack all day while you're lying on your ass in isolation, not doing much. Protein also keeps your basal metabolic rate as high as possible, since proteins take a lot more effort to digest than carbs or fats. Further, due to lack of activity, it's much easier to drop muscle mass in this period of isolation. So protein gives you the best shot of minimizing that muscle loss that is likely to occur. Next is dairy. Avoid dairy during this period if you can, as it can be quite inflammatory, especially with the sinus and respiratory pathways. It's not a good idea when you already have a blocked nose and congestion and are fighting inflammation at a systemic level as the body's immune system battles this disease. Then there's junk foods. As much as you might be craving junk food, try and avoid all refined sugars and highly processed foods. Not only are they very pro-inflammatory and may worsen symptoms, but they also lower the ability of your immune system to effectively mount a defense. Next is greens. Instead of junk, overloading on green cruciferous leafy vegetables is the way to go. They are high in antioxidants, extremely nutrient dense, and anti-inflammatory in nature, giving your body and immune system the best tools to combat the virus. Carbohydrates. A low-carb diet in general is advisable because you're expending lesser energy overall. I don't mean stop carbs altogether, but instead focus on quality. Whole grains like sweet potato, brown rice, oats, and stay within reason. Then there's beans, lentils, and legumes as well. Also, whole fruits are a solid option because they provide you with a ton of nutritional benefits like vitamins and minerals and help fight off the infection. And being isolated at home, your daily calorie expenditure will come down anyways. Mine was down approximately 35 to 40%, so I needed to manage my calorie intake accordingly as to not put on extra fat while vegetating at home. So you sacrifice the carb intake and instead ensure you keep those proteins and fats high for sustenance. Fats. Instead of carbs, focus on having more dietary fats than usual. And I'm talking about quality fats, not the processed fast food kinds. This will provide you with the energy you need to sustain yourself instead of depending on carbs. Think nuts, seeds, olive oil, eggs, and avocado. And the last food option I would recommend is broths, which are both nutrient dense and power packed. Either a bone broth or a vegetable broth, depending on your taste preference. And the last magic ingredient is turmeric or curcumin. I add this to all my foods. It's anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antibacterial, a potent antioxidant, and it also helps lessen pain. So very medicinal. Add garlic and ginger to as many of your foods as possible too. This trifecta of turmeric, garlic, and ginger provide a massive immune punch. You'll be glad you did. Let me know in the comments what you think of all these food options and if you've tried any of them. The next aspect I want to touch upon is body fat. The COVID virus, like most viruses, replicate the most in one's fat cells, which is why those who are overweight or obese are hit worse with symptoms. The coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 may directly infect fat cells and specific immune cells found in fat tissue, the New York Times reported. In a recent study, they found that fat cells, known as adipocytes, could become infected and develop a low level of inflammation. They also found that immune cells housed within the fat tissue, called macrophages, also became infected and kicked off a much more intense inflammatory response, known as a cytokine storm. In addition to these experiments, the team examined fat tissue from patients who died from COVID-19 infections and found coronavirus particles in the fat that surrounded various organs, or visceral fat. Viruses like HIV and influenza can squirrel themselves away in fat tissue as a way of hiding from the immune system. Several experts told the Times that SARS-CoV-2 could theoretically do something very similar, making fat a reservoir for the virus. Perhaps you can't do much about it once you've contracted the disease, but what you can control is not let your body's fat stores increase during this period of inactivity and isolation. Building from the previous point, if you aren't too bad off with regards to symptoms, then my advice is to try fasting. Not only are you able to drop body fat stores, but the body is also able to better combat the virus by focusing its resources on immunity versus trying to digest food. This happens through a process known as autophagy. Now, if you can't fast, try and have specific meal times instead of grazing through the day. And by no means am I asking you to eat less food, just less frequently. This allows the body to help clean out the junk viral proteins and recycle it during this process of fasting and help to recover from this disease faster. Moreover, this will keep your appetite at bay and help prevent overeating. Here are the supplements and over-the-counter medicines that I personally used. And here's my disclaimer. I'm not a doctor and this is not medical advice. Consult your doctor or pharmacist and use at your own discretion. 1. Saline nasal spray, which is basically salt water to help sanitize your nasal, sinus, and respiratory pathways. 2. Nasal spray for congestion, to help alleviate breathing issues, allowing you to breathe freely and from your nose rather than your mouth. Otrivin is a good option. 3. Clarinase, to help alleviate typical sinusoidal respiratory symptoms like a blocked or runny nose. It also contains an antihistamine. 4. Betadine. This is an antiviral, antibacterial solution to directly apply to your throat to help ease coughing and reduce viral load. 5. paracetamol for aches, pains, and fever. And now onto the supplements. Now the supplements I mentioned here are part of my daily regime in life in any case. The only addition was vitamin C, which I don't usually have day to day and was added during this period of infection. The first one is vitamin D3 combined with vitamin K2. The concentration of vitamin D3 is 4,000 IUs and that of vitamin K2 is 100 micrograms. The second one is zinc at a concentration of 50 milligrams. The third is omega-3 fish oil, which is about 1,200 milligrams of omega-3, which contains at least 500 milligrams of EPA and 400 milligrams of DHA in it. The fourth and last one is vitamin C at a concentration of 1,000 milligrams. Now the next thing is HEPA filters. My family and I kept HEPA filters on at home the entire time. We've got strong commercial grade HEPA filters which act as a suction and trap airborne dust, allergens, and free-floating viral particles. The best thing you can do to minimize transmission in indoor environments is filter the air and ventilate as much as possible by creating a cross breeze, especially when people are not wearing masks because they're at home. We have two at home, each of which covers approximately 400 square feet. This is also a really good option for indoor office environments. The absolute last and most important thing to focus on is sleep. This is the time when your body is able to fight at peak levels and mount its strongest defense against the virus. Try and get 8 uninterrupted hours of sleep at night. Personally, I find it hard to stay asleep unbroken, but I do the best I can. I tried pushing for 9 hours in bed, which accounted for 7.5 to 8 hours of actual sleep. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something new and got value from it. If you did, then please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Drop me a comment if you have any feedback for me.